Good morning. Today is the 9th of Iyar, of Sivan, and the 29th of May. And we're in part 6, I believe, or something like that, maybe 7, of learning this mimer. And we talked yesterday about why they had to add Bechukotai Zimra. We've seen this before in different mimarim, that when the temple was in Jerusalem, so there was a clear knowledge of God's presence in the world. That's what it means that the Shekhinah dwells. And so when the Shekhinah dwells, again, it's like people ask, so what is the nafkamina? How does that appear in your life? How does that transform your life? So they didn't need this chakikami b'chutz, this sorry, I think this was the chakika from Bifnim. They didn't need. No, it is mibachutz. They didn't need the engraving from the outside in order to overcome their evil inclination. In other words, it was very clear that there is Hashem and that He is greater. His presence is greater than all the other calculations that the person makes. What are all the other calculations? What the evil inclination tells him. The only way for you to succeed is to open your shop on Shabbos. The only way for you to succeed is if you don't go to minyan. The only way for you to succeed, and so on, and all these things. And everything else will only hinder your progress in the world. Okay, so that's called the engraving from the outside. And the engraving from the inside, v'chakikami bifnim, so we're here. hu al yedei mitzvot ma'asiyot sheb'bchinat chukah. So there we need, again, to overcome it, but this is from the inside. So for this we have actions that we do. And what kind of actions? Specifically the commandments that have no rational basis, like paraduma, like the red heifer.
Well, then none of them have any rational basis.
What? You're saying a chiddush, the normal way even that the Alter Rebbe understood things. Alter Rebbe didn't go to the Rebbe's Farbrengen, so he didn't hear about this. But the regular way that people understood was that there are commandments that have a rational basis and those that don't have a rational basis. And red heifer was always brought as the example. I've engraved in stone a law that you have no right to try to apologize for, meaning that you can't explain. And that is specifically the red heifer. Also, tzitzit and tefillin. Tzitzis that we wear is the same thing, and tefillin that we put on our arms and on our heads are the same thing. She'en b'hem shum sechel v'tam. They have no rational basis. They have no rational reason. והיינו מפני ששורש המצוות הוא מבחינת כתר, כי אורייתא מחוכמה נפקת. אבל שורשן הם מכתר, תרי"ג מצוות דאורייתא, ושבע מצוות דרבנן גימטריה תרח כתר. So even though Torah comes out from wisdom, which means that it should have a reason, because wisdom is always connected with either reason or with taste, which in Hebrew is the same word as tam, as reason. So even though that's how it appears, its root is rooted in the crown, and the word crown itself is equal to 620, which is the 613 commandments from the Torah, plus the 7 commandments that the sages added, na b'simcha. אך בכל ספירה יש בחינת קומה, כמו חוכמה שבחוכמה, וכמו כן בכתר יש בחינת מצוות המשך מחוכמה שבכתר, ונתלבש בחוכמה דאצילות. But these mitzvos that came out from the crown, they do come down. They do come down. Like there's ha'ataka, there is copying from world to world, from level to level. So everything that appears at one level also appears again at the lower level. And it keeps copying itself with slight variations, what they call today fractal theory. That you see the same shape with a slight variation. So here too, what was in the crown, in the crown itself, there are the mitzvahs that come from the reason of the crown, meaning the chokhmah stima, the concealed wisdom, which is the wisdom of the crown. So when they come down into our world, when this mitzvah comes down, what happens to it is that it encloses itself, it invests itself, it embodies itself into the wisdom of the lower world, of Atzilut, of emanation, for instance. And there it looks like it's already reasonable. It already looks like Chokhmah. Achar kach bebriah, then it comes down another notch. And then it's in the Chokhmah of the world of creation, which is all mind. Meaning, certainly there's a reason there. And that's why it seems to us that you can find some kind of reason for even the mitzvot that look like there are commandments without any rational basis. V'yesh mitzvot, so that is by most of the mitzvot. Right? So here he's saying basically what you just said. That really the root of all the mitzvot is in the crown, and they have no rational basis. But they do transcend down, they cascade down into the lower worlds. As they cascade down, they gain meaning, as it were. They become more understandable, more rational.
I would have thought it's exact opposite.
Huh?
I would have thought it's the exact opposite.
Why?
It's on the highest level. You can understand. Let's see this. You can understand what it is that Hashem wants from you.
In Atzilus, yes, but not in the crown.
And once you get down to here, there's nothing totally, completely blocked off. The whole understanding.
Down here, people don't do things without a reason. Theoretically, there's supposed to be a reason. The fact that people act irrationally doesn't mean that there's not a reason. Like, for instance, you look at a car, and every little piece of the engine has a certain shape. And so someone who doesn't know may not know what the reason is. Why is it shaped like this and not like that? But there's a reason. When they designed it in the world of action, everything has a specific role. Everything has a specific utility. So it has a reason why it looks like that. But when you're talking about in the origin of everything, why do we even need to drive from here to there? So the person, that's a famous story from the Baal Shem Tov. That we're traveling on a wagon to Brody, let's say, or somewhere. The horses think that we're going there to eat hay, because that's what they're going to get. The people that are aboard the wagon, they think that they're going there to do business. But I, who initiated the whole trip, I have a reason that can't even be described. I have an intuition that that's where I need to go. And that intuition is not a rational reason. There's nothing behind it that I can explain to you. So the higher up you go, the less explanation there is for what's going on. Why? Not because there really isn't some kind of explanation, but because we can't grasp it. The higher up I go, I can't grasp those reasons. So when it comes to the mitzvot, as far as I'm concerned, all the mitzvot are without reason at their highest level. Well, I don't know why Hashem. He could have done it like. It could have been that you shech from the neck, and it could have been that you shech from the back. You could have slaughtered both ways. What's the difference? So that because of that, as the sages say, at the highest level, lo nitnu mitzvot ela letzaref ben tabriot, that the commandments were given only to purify, The tzaref is like when you purify gold in a smelting. When you smelt something and remove all the inconsistencies. The what?
Remove the dross. The
dross, right. So that's what it's meant to do. Because when you become subservient to Hashem, that's how you get rid of all the opposition inside of you. Because a person has to be subservient to something. So at that level, it's almost like it doesn't matter what he would have chosen. You could have done it this way, you could have done it that way. It's all the same. There's no difference. Of course there's a difference, but I can't grasp that difference. If I would have done the whole calculation of how the world would turn out, as far as I can tell, it would turn out exactly the same way. There'd be no difference if we davened standing on our hands or standing on our feet. There's no difference. Well, what's the difference? It's the same world, as far as we're concerned. But Hashem sees that it's a different world, but we can't grasp that. So as far as we're concerned, there's no reason. And that, again, that's as far as reason goes. Beyond that, there's even higher than that, where there really is no reason. Where that's the only way to connect us with Him, the mitzvah itself. And we've talked about this many times. It's in the Hayom Yom. How do you connect? How do you create a connection, a bond between a very, very wise man and a very simpleton, and a great simpleton, who doesn't understand anything he's saying? The only way you can create that bond is by the wise man asking for some favor from the simple man. Yeah, pick me up, for instance. I can't walk. My sciatic nerve hurts. Anyway. ויש מצוות הנמשכים מכתר שבכתר, והם החוקים שהם רק בחינת רצון נקרא רבא דרעבין. And if it comes from the crown of the crown, not the wisdom in the crown, which still, when it propagates down, will have some reason, will have some rational reason, that commandment. There are commandments that come from the crown of the crown. They have no rational reason at all. And they're only called the will of wills, Rava de Ravin. Rava de Ravin comes out of the forehead. Okay? The forehead is always a symbol of, in Hebrew, metzach nechusha, of being hard-headed. The hard-headed part, the hard part of the head is here. This is apparently the hardest part. I don't know if it really is or not. ועל-ידי מצוות אלו ששורשן מאוד נעלה, יכול להיות חקיקה מבפנים בנפש הבהמית. Those mitzvot, those commandments, can reach the inner aspect, meaning, call it the need of the animal soul to see itself as rational, to see itself as making some kind of sense to itself. I don't just want this car because, because that's what I fancy. Oh, there's all these reasons, a whole list of reasons why this one that costs $10,000 more is the one I really need. And that's all nonsense. But the animal soul, when we say the inner aspect of the animal soul, we mean that the animal soul also wants to seem to itself as if it's going according to some kind of rational basis, as some kind of argument for what it's saying, what I'm supposed to do. That can be reached, that can be cleansed, like we said, it's refined. This engraving is like to clean it out, only by the crown of the mitzvot. וכתיתי ועברתי בארץ מצרים, אני ולא מלאך, מפני שהם בעמקי הקליפות, צריך דווקא אני, בחינה גבוה מאוד. So the same thing happened when he came out in Egypt. When God came in the 10th plague, the plague of the firstborn, he said, it's me and not a messenger, me and not an angel. Why? Because the highest has to appear in order to cleanse that seemingly logical or semi-logical, whatever kind of argument they have there of the animal soul. And it's the only one that can clean it out. וכמו כן, להיות חקיקה בנפש הבהמית, שיהיה לו בחינת אהבה להתקלל נפשו באחד, היא על ידי מצוות הנ"ל, ואין מה שכתוב, ודברו מתחיל ואתה יגדל נא כוח. And so, in the same way, for me to submit the animal soul from its inner aspect, I need to engrave it, or I need to use the scouring, what do you call that thing? Yeah, but you call it scouring something. Well, we used to clean pots and pans.
Scouring
brush or like even something harder even. That's the only way to really clean the inside of a vessel. You have to use something that's very rough and very harsh. And as far as the animal soul is concerned, the thing that's harshest and roughest for it is this thing that it can't understand. There's no explanation for it. So when you do something like that, when you commit to something that has no rational basis, at least in your mind, you haven't learned Kabbalah, so you haven't heard it. You haven't been tainted by all these deep explanations about why it's this way and why it's that way. But you just do it. So somebody puts on fill-in. As far as people are concerned, why do you do 7 times around your hands? Why do you divide it into 3 and 4? Why do you make something that looks like a shin here? What's the deal with the knot, the way? All those things, they make no sense. It's like, you could have done exactly the opposite. So doing that, at that moment, it lifts the person all the way up to the Yechidah. It lifts the person at that moment all the way up to the crown. And that is what scours the vessel from the inside and removes all the residue there. Uchmochen. So now, in order to bring the animal soul to also connect to love, so we read this. Again, the whole purpose is to bring it to love Hashem. What does it mean to love Hashem? To have some connection. That's why there's so many stories. pertinent story from Shavuot is a story about the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov, the first time they met. So the Maggid's animal soul was very, very delicate. It wasn't like ours. It's like a kicking bull. He had already refined himself tremendously. And yet it says that when he went to the Baal Shem Tov the first time, he heard about what a great scholar he was and what miracles he could perform and this and that. And he went to him, and he wasn't interested in the miracles, obviously, but he was interested in his learning. So he came to him, and the Baal Shem Tov gave him a lot of honor and respected him, and he sat with him alone, and he told him stories. What kind of stories? He told him one time I was in my wagon, I was driving with my driver Lexi, and we ran out of food. And so there was nothing for Alexi to eat. Until finally we came into somewhere and I bought him a loaf of bread and I gave it to him. There's a story like that. That's one story. Then he gives him another story that we're out of water. All kinds of strange stories. And the Maggid looks at him and says, this is what I came for, to hear these silly stories about your travels. Like, what is this? But he came in second day. The second day he told him all kinds of other strange stories. And they say that in the depth, all of these stories had a very important point, but the Maggid didn't understand what the Baal Shem Tov was talking about. Hey, how are you? And he had no idea what he was talking about. So the night of the second day, the Maggid gave up, and he said, I'm leaving. But it was very dark, so he told his driver, let's wait until the moon comes out, then we'll drive back to my city. And just before he was about to get on the wagon, so the Baal Shem Tov sent a messenger and said, the Baal Shem Tov begs that you come again. So this time he came, and he was broken. It wasn't easy for him to travel. He was lame. It was a very tough journey for him. It's not like my sciatic nerve. It's like really, really pain all the time. And so he comes to the Baal Shem Tov. And this time the Baal Shem Tov says, do you know how to learn? It's Chaim. So he says, yes, I know something. So he brings down the book, the Eitz Chaim. He opens it on a certain passage. And he says, the Maggid, okay, so explain what it says here. And the passage it says had many names of angels. And so the Maggid looked at it for a few minutes and he explained it. And the Baal Shem Tov says, you don't know how to explain. So the Maggid he looks at it again. He says, maybe I made a mistake. He reads it again and says, no, what I said is the right interpretation. So the Baal Shem Tov told him, stand up. And they both stood up. And then the Baal Shem Tov explained it. He says when he explained it, he explained it exactly the same way. Exactly the same explanation. There's no difference except for one difference. Every angel that he mentioned, you immediately felt their presence. Everything happened. Everything became a reality. So what was this? The whole telling him the stories was like scouring the vessel from the inside. A person at that level, he does all the mitzvot. There's nothing to ask him to do extra. But for him to be with the Rebbe in such a way that he doesn't know what the Rebbe is saying and doesn't understand, that for him is a scouring of the inside of the vessel. So even if it's not the inside of our vessel, which is very coarse and his is very refined, it's already very clean and so on, still there's an act there. So that's needed to clean the inside of the vessel. And then you can come to, like we said, an attachment. This is what we said yesterday. That it's real about creating an attachment between the Rebbe and the person, between the person and God, of love, so that I can open myself up to you. We'll end here and continue, God willing, tomorrow.